All right, here we are. Hi, here we are. And now it's time to go to work. There we are. Get my camera to turn on. I recently got to play around with a brand new toy. What photographer doesn't love playing around with new gear, right? I'm going to show you some of those pictures I shot with this brand new gear soon. But before I dive into any of that, I want to share a story with you. I recently went to lunch with a friend of mine um, and had a great time. And we were talking about life. We haven't seen each other in a while and wanted to catch up on everything. So I went to lunch, met with my friend, and what was so cool about this is she had some great stuff she wanted to tell me. Number one, um, she's a model, was Miss Japan, first runner-up for Miss Universe Japan, actually. And she told me this idea that she started. She had want to open her own modeling agency. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. So she's excited about it, telling me all about, the idea, the name of the agency. This is Raimu. Again, she was Miss Universe Japan, first runner-up. But I loved hearing her idea. So I told her, I've shot a lot of models for a lot of different agencies, and I've seen a lot of the agencies here in Tokyo. And the thing that was so strange for me seeing a lot of these model agencies was that the pictures looked kind of like, they didn't make me want to know more about that model. And I told her that. I said, I think today a lot of models are using subpar images because we live in a world where, good enough is good enough. Maybe the pictures are shot with a smartphone or they're just not great quality for a modeling agency. And to stand out, I told her I felt that she needs to have better pictures of her models. She showed me her site for her models at the time, and I felt they were not as good as they should be. So I said, you know what? You're starting this brand new agency. It's super important to come out strong when you have a new agency. So I told her I'd shoot her new models. Let's spend one day, get as many girls as you can to come in that day, and I'll photograph all of them. So that was the idea. So let me just show you actually a little bit of that first day of shooting and what happened with it. It's kind of cool to be in studio for sure. But here we are. I had Raimu do that jump only twice, and she's there showing one of the new models how to do a jump. People are used to posing, but being a model is not just about being in a pose. It's about real life and showing energy and spontaneity. And when you're jumping, you can't pose. That's a real image. So this is Raimu doing one of those two jumps, and I loved both of them. As a matter of fact, I think I have both of them here for you to see. So this is the first jump, second jump, and that was just for her showing the models how to move and how to get the energy going. And that was wonderful to see. And I think it was great for the other models as well to see the process that it takes to make these images come alive. Now, I told you earlier that I used a brand new piece of gear. I did test it before I shot this. I did a test on the gear, but it's by Profoto. They had this brand new modifier. And this modifier is a soft zoom modifier, soft zoom reflector. It feels kind of like a para, but it's not a true para. Para is a specific size and shape, and this is not that exact shape and size, but it is a beautiful modifier, and I love the light. So for all the images I'm going to show you today, I use that brand new Profoto modifier. Super, super cool. Love it. It is expensive. I mean, it's Profoto, but you get what you pay for. And that modifier absolutely rocks. I do love it. I'll be using it a lot more in the future for sure. So after Raimu went and showed the models how to move and how to pose, then I began shooting them, having fun. There were only 6 models total that came that day. There are more in the agency, but I got to shoot 6 models that day. And at first thing I thought about was making sure I had a great, like a beauty shot of each one, something in their face. Then I'd pull back. I used my Z8 and my Z9, make sure I got the great images I wanted. But first, I think having that great image that just stands out on a page is super important. I loved working with all these girls. They were all great, great energy. We only shot for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours at the most, and we were done. I do plan to shoot them again and get more images to help my friend and her agency out to make sure these girls stand out. And yes, the other thing about all these models, they are all Japanese, mixed, and I think that too will make her agency stand out here in Japan. All these girls, their native tongue is Japanese, and here we are in Japan. Of course, that's Raimu, showing them how they should be, how they should move, all that. And I had a ball doing this. Now, this is going to lead right into today's lesson as well. But before I get to the lesson, let's take questions from you. Maybe you have questions about today, about how things are going, about what light I used, about work models, whatever your questions are. This is the time for you to ask away about that before I dive into the lesson. If you've been watching, all this month I've been talking about telling a visual story. And when you're working with models, if you're doing a portfolio for a model, if you're doing work for a modeling agency, it's great for you as the photographer to think about stories. So this is going to fit right in today as we go into the last part of telling a visual story. Take a sip of my green tea here. So we have no questions yet on that. So I'm going to move right into today's lesson. Glad you are all here today. I do want to remind you, you can catch me here every single week on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, on Twitter, Twitter X. I'm here all the time to help you get further in your photography. So subscribe when you can. The link is all down there. Oh, thank you guys for coming in. I do see some questions that popped in. Do you shoot wireless? Wireless or tethered with the Z8 and Z9? I'll throw in the Z9 there too. So I don't like being tethered. When a client's there on the set, sometimes I've got to tether. We all know that. Being tethered means you have a cord from your camera to your computer so they can see the images on the screen as you're shooting. Personally, I don't like it. I like to be free and spontaneous to move around, and a cord, sometimes you feel like you can't move the way I want to move and get the images. I feel it's better to get the images and then show the clients afterwards, but I don't want to interrupt that flow. So personally, I don't like to shoot tethered unless I'm being required to tether. Thanks for asking that question. Somebody says, how many lights for that shoot? So I had 2 lights, but I actually turned one of them off because I felt I didn't really need that light in the end. So all those images are shot with 1 light. I had 2 on set, but I turned 1 off. They're all just that 1 modifier. That's it. We're shooting on a white cyc, super simple setup. I had an assistant there helping me out. Actually, a good friend of mine helped me out shoot behind the scenes video. He shot that video of me shooting. That was very cool. But that was it, really. Just super simple, beautiful light. I did have my light meter, so I made sure that right away I get the right exposure and all of that. But we'll go into that and even more as we go further into the lesson. Let's dive into that lesson. Thank you guys for all these questions. I'll go right into this, and then I'll come back to your questions for more at the very end. Today's lesson, well, first and foremost, for those who are hearing me for the first time or here for the first time, my name is Matthew Jordan Smith. I've been a photographer for over 35 years. I'm also a Nikon ambassador. I absolutely love this industry. You're seeing me right now using my Z8 as my camera right now. So let's dive right into this. Today is all about telling a visual story in photography. And we're going to go into the sequencing and presentation of your images. You don't really get a lot of information about sequencing, putting pictures together. You get a lot about editing, but I want to go beyond that. So let me just first show you beyond the editing part, but dive into what we all know. Maybe you're using Lightroom or Capture One or On One or any of the programs to go through and make your selections. We are all aware of that. You go through, you have all your pictures. Maybe you put 5 stars on the ones you like or a red dot. Like for me, I put a 5-star and the red sign to show my top selects. And then I have a way to see all those images. We all know about that. You find your best images. But today, I want to go beyond that and talk not just about selecting your images, but the sequencing of those images in terms of telling a visual story. This is super important. It's not just what you shoot, but what you show and what you show together. So forget about thinking about one picture and how one picture looks great to you, because you might see one picture that you love, but let's look at the sequencing part. So for sequencing my pictures, putting them together where they all flow and work together, I use Keynote. I think Keynote is probably the best program I've ever used in terms of having it look like a light box. For those who've shot film before, I know today a lot of people are shooting film, and when you get your film, you may put that film on a light box to see them all. Maybe it's the contact sheet, maybe it's the negatives, maybe it's actual transparencies. In the old days, we shot transparency for ads. I put all those images on a light box. So Keynote has a view called Lightbox. And that view, actually, is it Lightbox or it's something like that? But it gives you the view of a Lightbox, seeing your pictures this way, all laid out, but nothing but the images. And it moves around the same way a Lightbox would. I could move pictures any way I want to, put them side by side, and figure out which ones look good together. Let's talk about what makes for a great sequence. I usually think in pairs. I think about a magazine, be it online or be a physical magazine or a book. Maybe think about a book, left page, right page. And you want to make sure that left page picture, right page picture work together and don't fight against each other. This is the sequencing part of it. So what I want to do is play around with my pictures and see how they go together well, how they fit and work together. So here I am now looking at the Keynote and seeing all the pictures. I can drag them around any way I want to, put them anywhere I want, side by side. I can go through, select and put them together if I want. Super simple, super easy. And I'm not tied to any design that I'd set up. So here I am showing you what I consider a left page, right page. And I like to play around with these images and see what works well together. Usually I'm trying to find pictures that complement each other, but that are also opposite. And by opposite, maybe one's big, one's small, maybe one's black and white, one's color, maybe it's one horizontal, one vertical. I want to make a strong visual because you don't know. So here I'll play around with different images and see what looks better. Is it better, having her a little higher, the hands down? What looks better? And do they work together or are they fighting each other? So these two images, I think they are okay, but my eye goes to both girls and I want to go to one or the other. I want where they work together. So I'll go through and play around this sequence to find out what images really work well together. If you have two pictures where they're both beautiful and both right at you, maybe both kind of steal your attention. and you go back and forth on looking at those images. You want a sequence where it works together. So having images where there's energy, movement, and maybe one's quiet, still. That's that yin and yang of photography for sequencing, and it works beautifully together. And once you learn this language, you see it everywhere. Every ad, every magazine, all these editors, all these designers, they know this language. And when they're laying out your pictures, they're looking to tell an image, a story that moves visually. But as photographers, we have to shoot it first. So if you don't shoot it, they can't put it together. So I want to get pictures where I'm showing energy and movement, and then that quiet image as well, because together they work well. Now, I can play around even with this sequence where you have the energy and then you have the calm and make a different size. So maybe you have one image where it's smaller, physically smaller, and the other one's bigger and in your face. Your eye enters a spread from the left and settles on the right. So I normally want to have my stronger image on that right side, but it just depends on your images and your layout. If it's horizontal, if it's vertical, all of those things matter. Once I have my story together, then I'll eliminate all the other images, and I'll make a PDF of those images and send this story of my images to my client, my would-be client. Maybe I want a client that I want to have in the future, and I'll send them a PDF of my work, and I'll lay it out just like this. So this is a way for you to get work as well. I'll send them the PDF. That PDF is now showing my sequence in the way I like them to see it. So they'll get the PDF like this. The first image, you want to get them right away. So the first image, I'm looking for this energy in some way. You want to end your story and begin your story with a bang to wow the audience. So right away, I show the image of Raimu jumping right in your face, gets your attention. Then I'll go through and change it to maybe a quiet black and white looking off to the side against maybe a 3/4 shot of another model. So those two images work together. They're not fighting against each other. They're working to make each one better. Then I'll break up and do spreads where I'll have maybe 3 images or maybe 6 or 9 images on a spread to show more of the feeling and energy of an image if it has a lot of great images where they all work. Raimu was great on camera, so I had a lot of great images of her. But I thought maybe 6 or 9 is too many to show you here, but 3 does the job and shows you how to break it up. You don't want to show a story where it's all the same, left, right, left, right, left, right. It gets boring. So break it up, make it interesting. Throw in a surprise every now and then. Go from one image where you just have black space around it, or have it again with that big and small. So if you think about opposites, that yin and yang again, that image on the left is all energy. It's 3/4. It shows movement a little bit. Image on the right is still in your face, and your eyes go right to that model. They work together. So even when you're laying out for a model's portfolio, you want this type of look and energy throughout a website or a story or a magazine or a book. The language is all the same. Sequencing is so important. But you don't have to have another picture. You can have space also to make it work as well. Black space, white space against an image makes that image stand out. And this too is part of your sequence and how you show your images and have fun doing it. Now, there will be times when you have 2 images and you love both images. And I see this a lot. Now, this one I don't think works, but I do want to show you this because both images are almost fighting against each other. I don't know which model I want to look at. I mean, they're both beautiful, but I want them to work where they complement each other. So I would not show these images together normally, but I want to show you right now where I think these are fighting each other. So if you have that situation, move that picture out, maybe do one image against a black background or a white background, make it smaller or larger, make it interesting, make maybe one horizontal and one vertical, but have fun with it. like this one, smaller again and larger. You want to show this type of energy and reaction as you sequence your story and make it beautiful. And when you do, people remember you, your pictures stand out, have fun. Again, here we are, that big image moving and or 3/4 of her jumping in the air. And then again, just that one simple image, bam, in your face. And yes, this is one light getting this look. And then I'll end strong. So I'll end with a very strong image and begin with a strong image. You want to get their attention right away, and then you want them to leave feeling good. You don't want to show a lot of pictures, just enough to make somebody curious to want to contact you and go to that next stage, hire you. Okay, this is a short version of sequencing and presentation. I hope you enjoyed this, but now I am ready for your questions. Hopefully you have a lot. I enjoy doing this. There's nothing like being a photographer and doing what you love. And for me, this is the end all be all every single day. So somebody says, I love this layout. That reminds me of the homework assignment. Oh, this is one of my students there. How you doing, Deely? How you doing? So I do have a course. The course is called Photography Lighting Course. And every single week, I give live lessons in the course. There's also an online component to the course where I actually give you assignments. You're going through lessons throughout the course in the online component. But then every week we have a live segment as well. And you can join that course just by going to photographylightingcourse.com, seeing where you want to join and be a part of it, and jump on in. But now let me just take your questions and see what questions you may have about anything that you have seen today. Now, we've gone through a lot today in a short amount of time, but I want to take your questions and make sure that I can answer them in the appropriate manner. We had questions earlier asking about was I'm using one light or two lights or more. And I had two lights on the set and turned off one for the majority of the images you're seeing. At the very end, I shot all the models with the owner together, and I used two lights for that one because I had 6 models on set. So for that, I used two lights. But for the most part, it's just one light, one main beautiful light. That Profoto modifier is just absolutely beautiful, and I loved working with it. Have you learned Japanese? David says, have you learned Japanese? If you don't know, I'm living here in Tokyo. And David, I must say I've been struggling. I have not learned it where I need to be at all, but I'm working on that little by little. So hopefully sometime soon I'll be able to give a full conversation in Japanese and make it a little more interesting as you see me here in Tokyo. I'm not going to say it's not necessary. It is necessary. If you want to definitely have the real Japanese experience, you need to speak the language. Do people speak English here? A little bit, but not much. You'll do much better if you are speaking Japanese. And in my gym, I'm trying to learn by my friends there in the gym every morning to learn how to speak Japanese. So hopefully soon I can speak to you better in Japanese. Let's see. Genki desu ka? Genki. Thanks, Dwayne. Good seeing you there. Let's see. Annie says, do you go into shoots with thumbnails or a shooting list to aid with your sequence? I love that question. When it comes to going into a shoot, I do like having a roadmap, a way to show my clients what I want to do, especially when you're working with brand new models. So I will go through and put together sometimes a Pinterest board and show them what I want to do. I love having my Pinterest board on my iPad to just show the feeling, because sometimes I can say, oh, I want you to move. And maybe for a brand new model, they'll think that, oh, you want me to move and pose. I don't want that. And I did experience that. So in that situation, I've got to pull the model aside. And sometimes I'll actually go on set and show her what I want, show her or him what I want them to do, so they can have a clear vision in their mind of what they want. It is good to have some type of visual to aid in the process, whether that's from your iPad or sketches or whatever you use, but having some kind of aid to show the roadmap to them and for you. For me, I like to having on a job, I do want to have more of a roadmap and have a storyboard. On a shoot for a modeling agency, I didn't need that so much. But on a commercial shoot or a job where I'm telling a real story, that storyboard definitely helps. Thank you for that one. Oh, Sky says, please explain the PDF process and what does it mean and why it's important. Okay. Thank you for that question. So you've made your selection of your top images. You've put them in a sequence where it flows and tells a story. The idea is to tell a story. Whether that story is 10 pages, 12 pages, they aren't there. You want them to feel something, to feel what you are trying to tell, get the story across. And that PDF, the idea of the PDF is to tell a story visually and show your skill as a photographer. I want to show that I'm more than just a photographer, that I'm a storyteller, I'm a director. And that PDF does that. So I put all those pictures together. I make a small PDF. You don't want to bog down someone's email with a large PDF. So it should be more than, say, 10, 12 pictures at the most. It's going to also have your information at the beginning or the end, your name, your address, your contact information. That's a must. So this PDF is a way for you to get work from a client. With a brand new client or someone who's never worked before, you'll show your idea by sending an example of your work as a PDF to a client. And then hopefully that will open a door for more conversations, wanting them to see more of your work, and hopefully hiring you for a job. Let's see. Someone says, I shoot in RAW and I export in JPEG to show my clients. Of course, please explain what I am doing wrong. So shooting it in RAW is not a bad thing. I shoot in RAW as well. I shoot RAW and JPEG. Now for my for that PDF, you're not going to show RAW files. I'm going to go through, make my storyboard and export them as small JPEGs and then turn those small JPEGs into that small PDF. It is extremely important that is a small PDF, that it can be emailed easily, that they can see it without maybe they're on their phone. You don't want to take a long time to open up. It should be quick and easy and fast. So I don't think you're doing anything wrong by shooting in RAW at all. You want to just go through, shoot RAW, which I always do. I think everybody who's a pro will do that. Make your selection of your images. After you make those selections, then you're back at your desk in your computer and you're going to make your sequence of your best images that tell your story. And for photographers, that may not mean you may not be showing all the best pictures. I know this is hard to understand. Sometimes your best story is not the best pictures. Sometimes you'll have so many great pictures, but it doesn't work as the story. But the purpose of the PDF is just to get them interested in seeing more of your work. If you have more, that's great. You can show that in a separate PDF or show them more later on when they request to see more. But that PDF opens the door to so much for you getting work. Thank you so much, Sky, for that question. Tony Beasley says, can a PDF be easily converted to a magazine or Canva? Canva is a program people use to make storyboards and things like that as well, or to buy art. So Tony, with the PDF, you can turn it into an online book. People use PDFs for storyboards on, say, a device, and that's all well and good. But for this purpose, think about that PDF just being what you send to a client for them to see your work and hire you, versus printing that for a magazine. It can be, but you don't want them to print from a PDF. You want them to print from actual raw files if it's going to be a magazine or or whatever. You want the best quality files for that. For the PDF, you don't want the best quality files. You want them to see it and see it quickly. So think of it as opening the door for you to get work. You won't use it as the actual work. Thank you for that question, Tony. I love all of these questions. You guys are so great. Oh, would you use the PDF for IBS, IPS? I'm not sure what IPS is actually on this one, Tony, but and Tony's actually in my course as well. Tony will talk about that one in the next live session because I got to find out what IPS is. I'm not really sure what that is. Or if you can spell that out for me so I understand what that is. Dwayne, thank you for being here. Good seeing you here from LA. Genki desu ka? Good seeing everybody coming in, asking the questions. I do love seeing that in person. Oh, in-person sales. I would not use the PDF for in-person sales. Maybe it's not a bad idea. Let me retract that. It's not a bad idea to show a PDF because you are showing your sequence the way you see a story and being laid out. So maybe that could be a good way. I don't do in-person sales that way. I'm not selling my work that way, but I know a lot of people are. And that's not a bad idea, actually. The more I think about that, Tony, I think that is actually not a bad idea because you are showing the story the way you as the photographer want your clients to see it. And very often people, the average person can't tell, they see a lot of images together, how it works as a story or how it should be laid out and how they work together. You as the creator, you do have that talent and you learn that talent by practicing. You don't know that organically. You learn that from doing it over and over and over. And like you become a better photographer, you become better at seeing. And also this sequence, you see it in movies all the time. You'll see this same language in a movie because the same visual language works in all visual mediums. So study movies, turn the sound off and just look at the images and watch this same language as it works. It's beautiful. I love all you guys' questions today. This is so fantastic. Thank you, Dwayne. Yes. IPS. I didn't know that one at all. Good seeing you guys and lovely seeing all your questions today. Thank you so much. I'll be back here next week answering more questions and sharing more stories of life in Japan. Until then, please have a great rest of your week, great safe weekend, and I'll see you, in October 2023. All right, everyone. Thank you for your time. Look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. I'm Matthew Jordan Smith. If you want to know more about my course, just go to photographylightingcourse.com. Super simple. There we teach more details about all of this and so much more. All right, everyone. Thank you again for your time. Jane, take care.